Hello everyone and welcome back to the Eagler modding tutorials. This is episode 4 and today we're going to be covering how to do the desktop runtime in IntelliJ as well as creating some GUIs and debugging and all that. I've loaded into a brand new workspace as I'm on a new computer now, and the workspace I was using before I don't have access to, but you should be able to pick back up wherever you left off. I would recommend updating your Eaglercraft to the latest version, and instructions are in the Discord below. Maybe I can go over that in a future episode. Because in order for some of the things we're going to do today to work, you'll have to be on a version higher than U40. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is the desktop runtime. Let's do this by heading into our build.gradle file. We're going to go here, and after our main source set, we're going to add one named desktop. Under this will be Java, and we're going to have our source dirs as src main Java, src game Java, protocol game, protocol relay. This one we're going to have lwjgl, and we're not going to have the boot menu. Basically, we just don't have these tvm ones. Then we're going to head into our dependencies here, go a couple lines down, and do desktop implementation file tree, so that we get all the files in a certain folder. This will be desktop runtime / eclipse project / deps _ fix. And you can actually see this over here. We go into desktop runtime eclipse project, and there it is. This just has a ton of dependencies that we need to include if we're going to be running the desktop runtime. Then, finally at the bottom here, let's register a new task. So tasks.register, and I'm going to name this desktop run, and we are going to do it as a Java exec. And I'm going to throw down some code underneath this that I've gotten from a few people. You can take a second, pause, copy this down. It's basically just the stuff that actually runs the desktop runtime. And of course, if you want, you can also change the group and description. Those are just, customizable things. But once we're done with this, in the top right corner, you should see this little reload button. And you can click that or do Control-Shift-O, and it'll reload your build.gradle file and your whole project. It might take a second to index, that's just kind of how it works. But now that you're done with that, you can... Oh, it seems like that fixed our errors. But now that you're done with that, you can close out of build.gradle. You can then go up to this current file. Actually, you could do that if you want to make a configuration for it, or you can just go to the Gradle tab under Tasks, Eaglercraft X Desktop, and then Desktop Run. There it is. Double click it, and it should take a second, compile. The first time you run this might take a bit longer because it's compiling all of the stuff, but you won't have to run the compile.js or compile EPK individually. You will get this little warning down here that says, warning for removal, but we're still going to be able to compile, so it doesn't really matter. And here it is, our desktop runtime opening up. We can click down on that, set our name so that we don't get a notification, and let's pick a little skin, click done, and boom, now we are in the desktop edition, and this will let us do stuff a lot faster in the future for debugging, which is just really cool in my opinion. Alright, let's head into our src folder, then game. This is where most of the actual Minecraft stuff is stored. Then client, and then GUI, and we could pick any one of these to customize, or we could make our own. And in this video, I'll showcase both of those, how to do, a multitude of things. But For example, now let's go into GUI in-game menu. And you'll notice a clear couple of functions here. If I collapse these, it's more easier to see. First, there's a constructor, which when this class is created, it simply sets some stuff. So, with a parent menu, it sets up a voice menu for like the voice chat system and all that. Pretty much anything to do when your GUI is first made, but not shown yet. Let's close out of that. Then we have init GUI. This one is, well, there's a lot here, but you can kind of see it sets up all the buttons, but it doesn't render anything yet, but it kind of sets up everything. So there's a button here for stats, achievements, open to LAN, options, return to game, disconnect, that type of stuff. And it just adds these buttons to something called a button list, which is part of the class it extends. So the parent class called GUI screen, which is every GUI in Minecraft is a GUI screen. And this one is adding these specific buttons in. Then we have action performed. This one is whenever a button is clicked. And because each button is given an ID, it'll let you detect that. So for example, if it's ID 0, which I assume is the options button, it'll display GUI options or whatever. Then there's update screen. This one lets you like kind of change stuff during display. Then there's draw screen. This is what actually renders anything that's happening. So first it draws the default background, which basically means that if you're in game, it'll be like, I don't know, blurred or darkened. I don't know how Minecraft 1.8 does it, but in newer versions it's blurred. Then here it draws the title at the top of the screen and all sorts of stuff. But one of the big things is that it says here, usually it wouldn't be in this whole try catch thing, but this super.draw screen. Super means that the parent class, so GUI screen, it'll call whatever's in the function there. And in this case, draw screen in the super class is drawing all the buttons, which you want to keep. So now that we've kind of gone through everything in this menu, let's make some changes. So, for example, I'm going to draw in the top right corner a little box with our client name. This should be pretty easy. I'll do it after the title. And after the title and background, I will do GUI.draw rect. And here we have left, top, right, bottom, and then color. So from the left, it is going to be width. So all the way to the right of the screen, and then minus, let's say, 100 for how wide we want it to be. From top, 0, because we want it to be in the very top. For right, 0. And then for bottom, we're going to do height minus, let's say, 24. That's a good one. And for the color, you do 0x and then whatever color you want it to be in hex. But you can also do -1 for white and 0 for black. Those are some quick ones. So I'm just going to make this completely black right now. After that, I'm going to do a this dot. Technically, you can do this dot draw string, but I'm used to doing this dot font renderer obj. You can also do mc dot font renderer obj, but this is technically the right one to use. And then dot draw string. For the text, I'm gonna do tutorial. And then for the, let's see, X, Y, and color. So for our X, width minus, let's say, let's do 50, so that's half of our rectangle, and then minus, and, oh, it already pre-filled it, but FontRender.getStringWidth, so this will be the size of the text tutorial, so how big that'll actually be. Y6 is good, and I'm just going to do -1 for color, because that's a good color. And now that we've done that, let's use our new desktop run, or you can just use the regular compile JS and EPK. In this case, you wouldn't have to do EPK, but compile and then open it up. And later in this video, I'll also show you how to compile in WASM, or WebAssembly, which will make a much faster web build. Now let's head into single player and make a new world. And if we click escape, you'll notice in the corner it says tutorial. A rect isn't rendering, and I probably did something wrong, because everybody messes up sometimes. You might have to like tweak the parameters of this to get it to work. Okay, I fixed the issue. It seems I was overcomplicating things on how they needed to be. This is the code that ended up working, if you want to know. But also, as an example, let's head into IntelliJ IDEA, and let's add a little button to get to a different menu. We'll do this, buttonlist.add. Laxadude has made his own class called GUI button with stupid icons for mobile support, and how that works, because Eaglercraft now has pretty complete mobile support, which is super cool. I'm not really going to be covering how that works. I mean, I do know that there is some functions you'll need to add in for like touch and dragging if you want to use all that. Or for example, icons, you can use this. You can kind of look at how it's already made and then work off of that. But for this, I'm going to new GUI button. Button ID, I'm going to do, let's do 70x. We're going to do this dot width minus 1, let's do 90 actually. Y, I'll do like 24. And then for our button text, I will do example. If you want to, after the Y, you can also do a width and a height. However, if you just want to leave the default size, you just do this. Then let's go out of IntelliJ IDEA into action performed here, which is where we have a little switch case here. Technically you could do this with an if statement as well. There's multiple ways to do it, but we're gonna build off of this, and we'll do case 70, and we'll do this.mc.display GUI screen, new GUI custom menu. And I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not going to do a whole parent system. Unlike how some other things like this one have a parent, so that when you click escape or whatever, it'll just go right to it. Actually, I think escape will still work, but... And then I'm going to go into this Java folder up here, and we're going to make a new package. For me, I have a domain, so I have GavinGoGaming.com. I also own clash.dev. However, if you don't just put the name of your client. That's really bad formatting in Java. What you want to do is do me, dot, and then your name, so Gavin, for example, dot, and then whatever it is. For example, net.minecraft, at the time, you know, they had minecraft.net, so that's what it is. It's kind of a reverse domain. So if you don't have a domain, do like me.gavin.client, for example, but replace that with your client name. For me, I'm gonna do com.GavinGoGaming, because I own GavinGoGaming.com. Tutorial. Now that I have this, I'm gonna make a new class inside of it called GUI custom menu. If you get this pop-up, that's just adding it to the repository. You can just click don't ask again, or don't do that, and then just add it. For a menu, we're gonna wanna make it extend GUI screen so that it's a proper screen. And let's have you can do control space to bring up this little menu and type in draw screen and just click enter. For these, it is mouse X, mouse Y, and partial ticks. When you're working with game source code a lot, names of stuff are obfuscated, so it's just like J, I, and like var3, you know, but you can just replace it with the actual names if you know, or if you're not going to be using that, maybe don't, you know, it doesn't really matter. Then we're going to do this dot draw default background. You can also do draw background with tint, but I don't think that's ever actually used besides internally, so I'm just going to do draw default. And then I will use a little helper function, this.draw centered string, for this.font renderer obj. Our string is gonna be hello world, and our x, I'll just do this. This.width divided by 2 is the center on the width on the x-axis, and then this.height divided by 2 is center on the y-axis, and then this is just white. You could do -1 as well. Now that we have our custom menu, let's go back to our GUI in-game, and let's import it here, and let's test it out. Seems I underestimated how big the default button size is. It's the same as this back to game button. But our button is there, and if we click it, it goes to our custom menu, which is really cool. If you notice right now, this menu also pauses the game, so stuff like chat and mobs moving isn't gonna work right now, as the game's paused. However, if we close this out and go to our menu, if we wanted, we could do does GUI pause game and return false to let it keep the game running, even if we're keep the game running when we open it in game. With all that done, the final thing I'm going to cover is how to compile With all that done, the final thing I'm going to cover in this video is how to compile a WASM build, or WebAssembly, which is a much faster build. However, Chromebooks and other Chrome or Firefox, basically browsers, will need JSPI, or a promise integration, enabled. It's just a flag in your Chrome settings that you can enable, or you can put it on a website and request a origin trial so that it'll just be enabled for everyone by default. If you're familiar with using WASM in Eaglercraft, then you probably know how this works, but if you're not, then I'll walk you through like compiling it and everything. So first of all, I'm going to open up a terminal. So a way to do this is you just kind of right click on this folder and then click open in terminal. Now that we're in here, yours might look a little bit different. You can get this by just clicking here and click new terminal. However, all you have to do now is you can do dir to list everything in this directory, or we can just look up here and you'll see there's kind of similar stuff. There's EPK, compile JS, but there's like Runtime and Bootstrap, and you can click on this readme file to kind of see how to do it. You can just click up here for only the preview. And it says right here to compile the client, compile EPK, compile WASM, Runtime.js, and then make WASM client bundle. And it'll be in the JavaScript dist folder, which is right here. You can also edit the offline download template as well as the one in the JavaScript folder. You can read all of this if you want. Igloo does now use their own TVM fork, which is pretty cool. But anyways, let's get to this. So let's go down here and do / and then compile epk.bat and just hit enter. Okay. Then I'm going to do compile wasm, and that'll download whatever Gradle version it needs and compile it. While this is compiling, I do want to point out that there are some files here, bootstrap.js, and then in the JavaScript folder, loader.js and loader.wasm. These are pre-added, so you don't need to compile them, but if you want to, it says here optional steps, and you can run them to recompile those two files. If you haven't made any changes to them, then you should just leave them as is, because you don't want to risk anything breaking in the future. Once that's done, we can do our compile eag runtime, and let that go. And finally, our make awesome client bundle. And this will kind of compress everything up into a EPW file, which is kind of a custom archive format. And boom, now if we check in our JavaScript dist folder, we have a wasm-gc offline download and an assets here, as well as an index, so you can put this index, bootstrap, favicon, and assets onto a server for an online version, and then this is the offline download. We can right click, open in, and then browser, and you can use whatever. I'm just going to use default. And this will boot up. Oh, I don't have JSPI enabled. Anyways, if you did have JSPI enabled, that would work. So boom, now you have all of those files for wasm. And of course, if you want to compile it regularly, you can click cd ... to get back into the root folder and just / compile js.bat, then compile EPK. Of course, you only need to do EPK or JS, depending if you changed the assets or the JavaScript. If you enjoyed this tutorial episode, thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you liked it, and leave in the comments any videos you want to see next. I mean, I don't have too many ideas. I have a few ideas on what to do, but I want to know what you guys want to see, you know? What you guys trying to code in your client. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.